Hi, I'm Mark Steven Porro, the author of A Cup of Tea on the Commode, and I just spent a lovely hour with Kim Sorrelle on her podcast. So you're going to want to tune in because we share some very interesting stories. And she's a lovely host, and I think you're going to have a good time. Take care.
Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. You're going to be so glad you're here. I am Kim Sorrelle. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I get to do a lot of fun things in life, but my favorite thing to do by far is meet people. And I get to meet some of the most interesting, amazing, incredible people that walk the face of this earth. And today I have Mark Porro, like Zorro with a P, but not P at the end, P at the beginning, Porro. And what a cool name, right? So I picture him like you should have a sword and you should just be walking up to people and like putting a P on their shirt, right? But
Yeah.
something, yeah. Anyway, we're going to talk about a lot of things, caregiving for one, but Mark has done so many things in life, more than some people in 5 lifetimes, I think. But he's been an actor. He's had businesses. He's started businesses. He's taking great care of his mama. He has moved countries. He's just done a lot. And so we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, and a lot of it's going to be so good for you to hear. So thank you for joining us. Mark, thank you for being here.
It is my pleasure. Coming from all the way from France. I didn't move France. I moved to France. So here we are in France. But don't test my French, please.
Oh, well, parlez-vous français, I guess, is about all I know. So
That's good enough.
So
They say we actually have 40,000 words in common, but some of them have different meanings. Like, let's say with my book, A Cup of Tea on the Commode, a commode here is a chest of drawers. So totally different meaning if it comes to France. We'll have to change the title. Anyway, that's just an example of the confusion that can cause.
Yeah, so either have to change the name or maybe the picture on the cover, it could be somebody having tea on a French commode.
Okay, well, okay. Possibilities, yes.
Something to think about. Anyway, Mark, I want people to get to know you because you have had just an adventure of a life and have done so many fun things and good things. And so I want to start with your story. And so I want you to tell us about 8-year-old Mark.
8-year-old Mark. Well, I am one of 6 children. We were all raised, or as Richard Lewis would say, lowered in New Jersey. My father was a chemist. My mother was the proofreader for the largest newspaper in New Jersey. And so I have 2 older brothers, 2 older sisters, and 1 younger sister. So 8-year-old me, actually, I was a thumb-sucking bedwetter who suffered from asthma. And but that didn't keep me from sports and being super active or being the test dummy for my 2 older brothers a good part of my life. But one of the cool things about having asthma, at least back then, is I got steroid shots every week. And I don't remember any pain from the shots because every time I went in for a shot, I got a coupon for a huge ice cream cone. And that's what I remember. And it was genius because I looked forward to getting those shots. And those shots, I think, pretty much saved my life. And then, fortunately, a few years later, I outgrew the asthma. And I've never had an attack since. So I guess the steroids and maybe the ice cream is what worked, but it was fantastic. So since then, I've stopped the bedwetting. I've stopped the thumb sucking. And the asthma hasn't recurred. So we've come a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, you have come a long way. So congratulations on that. You know, the whole wedding thing, I mean, that can carry you through life, I guess. So it's nice that ended. You know, it makes more pleasant to be around probably if you're with somebody, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so you got through school. And what did you dream about? Like when you were a kid, how did you imagine your life? What were you going to be when you grew up?
Well, my mother, I have a chapter in the book called Our Champion of the Arts. She got us all involved in the ballet early on. And my start was probably around 7 years old. My older brother and older sister were like little stars in northern New Jersey. And we were part of some really cool productions. We had a very strict Russian dance teacher, Irene Fokine, who was very well known in the area. And she put on an annual Nutcracker in New Jersey and got a lot of the main talent from New York City. So it was a very highly respected production, and that was very cool to be part of for a number of years. But I actually got my start in Lincoln Center. I went to see my older brother and sister. They were dancing as kind of like child extras with the Royal Danish Ballet. And so I'm backstage with them during a break, and some guy bursts through, it was like a Hollywood story. He bursts through the door and says, "Hey, we need another little kid for the show." And then he locks eyes with me and says, "You, kid, you want to be in the show?" And I hesitated for a minute because I didn't know what to say. And he says, "And we'll pay you." And so I said, "Now we're talking." So I started out as a professional ballet dancer. I got paid $5 a show and started in Lincoln Center, which was very cool. So
Wow.
after that, I got a great costume. I was like this little swashbuckle, little Errol Flynn kind of character. And after that, I started taking dance lessons, and it was very cool. So I think performing was part of my life very early on, and then in my mid-teens, I really wanted to be an eye surgeon. So that was my focus up until college. And then I discovered industrial design. And so that's where I got my major in because that fused a number of my loves, which was math and science and art. And I didn't even know that profession existed. And Ohio State at the time, I lucked out, had one of the best schools in the country. So that was very cool. But along that time, the acting bug crept back into my life. And so I gave up a couple of really good design positions to move out to Hollywood for the very stable and consistent work as an actor for
That
28
everybody
years.
experiences as an actor. Yes, that
Yeah,
stable, consistent work. Yes, that,
yeah.
yeah.
But it was fun. I had a good time, and I studied hard and continued that for most of my time out in LA and did a lot of work actually. My focus was to be on a really good show and to be a good actor. So I started studying from day one. And at the time, my goal was to get on Hill Street Blues because that was one of the top shows, if not the top show at the time. And less than 2 years later, I was on Hill Street Blues as an assistant attorney. So that was very cool.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So fun. What an experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, so acting. So you've had a taste of a bunch of different worlds, really.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So
So,
acting was
so
fun.
while I was there, okay, so the design career was great. I always kept doing design because I like to eat. Because again, acting, I had that first week I did Hill Street Blues and I did an independent film, and then I didn't work again for 7 months. So luckily I had design so I could eat regular meals. And then I started up, LA was so cool. If you had any ambition, which I had plenty of, you could start all kinds of things. And so I started a number of businesses. And so I joke in the book that I started five nonprofit businesses, but none were intended to be nonprofit. But I took whatever I learned from each, I wouldn't say failure, but each educational experience and took it to the next one, and then to the next one, and the next one. And it was fun because you keep a lot of balls juggling in the air. My dad was always amazed that I was able to do that. But it was fun, and I think part of I think maybe at 8 years old too, I got bored easy. And if I got bored, I moved on to something else. And that's kind of like my modus operandi, I suppose.
Yes, yeah. Just move on. If it's
Yeah.
boring, just move on. Yeah. So one of your businesses, though, you were in the snack food industry, is that right?
Yeah, my dad invented this half pop popcorn snack back in 1963. And it was a family secret and a snack that we loved and all his friends loved. And he tried to get a couple big companies interested. And he had some success, but the deal they were offering and was not attracted to my dad. So he turned them all down. And it remained a family secret. And it's a very difficult messy thing to do. And he got tired of doing it. So by the mid 80s, he was done with it. And then my nieces and nephews, I never had any children, but my nieces and nephews were coming of age and they started hearing about Grandpa Poe's snack. And I said, boy, isn't it a shame that they didn't get to taste this stuff? So I asked my dad for the recipe and I started making it. And at that time I was in Hollywood. So that was kind of like my calling card. I don't know if you know the story of Famous Amos, but Famous Amos made these great chocolate chip cookies. And that would be his calling card in Hollywood. So I thought at this point, the company or the product was called NeutriNuts. And again, half pop popcorn. It was mixed with dry roasted soy nuts for some extra protein that my dad thought would be a good idea. And I brought those to every audition, and I brought some on every craft service table, just as kind of a fun thing. And then we turned it into a real company. Unfortunately, my dad passed before we were in the stores. But shortly after he passed, within the next year, we were on the whole LA area with a number of gourmet type stores. And then my brother started it on the East Coast. And then eventually we became the snack of the day on Rachel Ray. And then we got national distribution from that. So then we were a national brand for a short time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that was, I guess, one of my success stories. And also it was great because we honored my dad. And one of the cool things I got was a note from one of his grandchildren who said, "Oh my gosh, I went to a store and I saw Grandpa Poe's snack on the shelf." And she
Aw.
got such a kick out of it. And I thought that was great. So that was a nice way to honor my dad.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And talk about a tough industry to break into. So, right? I mean, it's one of the
Yeah.
hardest. So to get shelf space, to get it on shelves, that's huge. I mean, go
It's
you.
it's quite a racket, but yeah, I had the motivation certainly was to honor my dad, so there was no that I would accept, and charm and humor certainly helped, but being persistent helped, and also we had a great product, and at that time the organic. This was in 1998 when we got on the first shelves. And organics were just coming in, and the soy craze was just beginning, and we had soy since 1963. So the timing was just perfect.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, so fun. So eventually you ended up moving back home, which as a thumb sucking bedwetter, you probably thought was inevitable, maybe.
No,
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 who
I
moved back
left.
home?
I
Yeah.
left. No, I left New Jersey shortly after I turned 18 and never really moved back there. I went to school at The Ohio State University, and then in '84 moved out to LA and remained there pretty much. And I saw a lot of my parents would come out and visit quite a bit, sometimes together, sometimes separately for vacations. And so what was very cool about that is I had that one-on-one with them and got to know them on a whole different level, I think, from my other siblings, because I was a really curious kid too. So I got them to open up. They were from I call the Depression generation, where they didn't talk about their pain and the feelings or any of that kind of stuff. And I got them both to open up about things I don't think they were comfortable opening up with. And it was very cool. So that I had a really good relationship with both of them. And
Yeah,
then,
that's
so when this thing happened with my mom in 2011, she was on her deathbed, and I get a call from my brother, and she was in the house. We all grew up in New Jersey. And so we all flew home. So the 6 kids were there. We had the priest deliver the last rites, and that was it. We were ready to say goodbye. And then hospice was called, and she was in no pain or anything like that. And there was no real reason for it. And I think it was a self-willed, I called it a semi-comatose state. I think she looked around at her life and she wasn't happy. And she kind of said, if this is what it's going to be, I'm out of here, and just shut down. And but after a few weeks, I think she sensed that love was back in her house, and her kids definitely cared for her, and hospice was there full time, and hospice was great. And my younger sister and I hung out with them and learned as much as we could, because we wanted to care for our mother as much as we could for as long as she wanted to be here. And at that point, we didn't know if it was going to be days or weeks or what. And I think mom sensed that. And then eventually she snapped out of it.
Yeah, which is amazing because
Yeah.
here you're thinking you got a couple days maybe left, and instead you had a long time left.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
what was nice about that is, yeah, I started looking around at the environment and thinking that, I've got to do something here because most of it was on my brother at that point. He was the point man. He lived close. So he hired people to come in and look after mom. We had a family living upstairs that were overseeing household duties and doing grocery shopping and stuff like that. And at that point, before this incident, mom could still walk and take care of herself pretty much. We had someone eventually come in and help her get ready for bed at night and clean up in the morning. But after this thing, she was bedridden and needed help with a lot of things. So I just thought, mom deserved better, and I got to do something about it. So
yeah, which good for you because a lot of people would say she needs better, she needs something different, and there's a home down the street or
right,
whatever.
yeah,
And, I mean, that
yeah,
people make choices, whatever choices they make. But what a wonderful gift to be able
yeah,
to say, no, I to be in a position where you can spend the time with your mom and you can be the caretaker. You can be the one taking care of your mom.
yeah. What was nice about that is I think um, if you make, let's say, the right decision, whether it's the universe or whatever talking to you, it supported that. So yes, I was able to do it. The decision was easy. Working out the logistics wasn't so easy, but the world and it just seemed to support it, and it made it all kind of happen. So that was lucky that I had that opportunity, and everything kind of fell into place. So yeah, it was very cool. That's why I call it my multitasking adventures because again, my first kid was my 89-year-old mother, and so that was quite interesting and quite a learning curve.
Yeah, well, and learning everything from hospice is great, but there are things that you have to do that you hope you never have to do for a parent.
Yeah, I chronicle that quite in a lot of detail. A lot of people say, "Oh, very raw detail," but I wanted to write a very honest book of what to expect and how to deal with it. And if I tell people, I say, if you're uncomfortable doing this, don't do it because your loved one will feel the uneasiness and they'll feel guilty that they're putting you in that position. But I think my acting and my design experience help support all this because it was like I said, okay, I'm now the caregiver. This is my role. I can be the loving son, but I cannot be squeamish about any of this stuff because there were no lines that I did not cross to keep mom healthy and safe and happy. And so, yeah, you're seeing your mother naked for the first time, and you're seeing what the years have done and what gravity has done, and gravity is very cruel. And one of my goals, I did ask her for permission. I didn't move back right away. I stayed there for several weeks and then went back to LA and then came back a few months later and took care of her again. And I think being a son, I took more of a romantic approach, and I wanted mom to feel pretty, and I also wanted to make her laugh at least once a day. But I did ask for permission. I said, "Do you want to make sure that I come back and your last years, as long as you want to be here, are happy and safe?" And she said, "Yes, I want you to do this." So that was a big deal. And so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you did some things that unlike any other, like for instance, the title of your book. That's not something normally people do, is have
No.
tea on the commode. But just one day
Yeah.
you just thought, hey, maybe she'd like a cup of tea while she's sitting there. Is that
Yeah.
what it was?
Well, her favorite beverage was hot tea, skim milk, no sugar, and sometimes Mother Nature took it a little longer than was comfortable for either one of us. And so, I kind of as a joke, I said, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea while we're waiting?" And she said yes, and it became a hit, and that became part of our morning ritual. And as I was writing the book and getting further into it, because I had another title in mind, and this cup of tea on the commode just I thought was very catchy.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it was a very special moment or ritual for us. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it just became a daily thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Now,
And
since then, I've learned my nephew eats potato chips on the commode. So
oh,
that might be another book in the future. So,
yeah, potato chips on the commode. It doesn't quite have the same ring to it as
no,
tea.
no, it doesn't.
And I'm not sure why you'd want to eat anything, to be honest.
I agree.
There are
Uh,
rooms in your house that are specially made for eating. And
yes,
that's just not one of them.
I'll give you his email. You can let him know.
But I guess to each his own, right?
Yeah.
So interesting.
Our,
Yeah,
our whole family is pretty kooky, so I think it's nice that it's moved to that generation as well. So,
yeah, yeah. And maybe it'll just continue and next time it'll be cupcakes or who knows, the next person, what it'll
all
be.
right.
But
Well, and nothing else that gives a nice idea for a series of books.
that's right. Exactly. Might as well keep going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, what was it like though? I mean, as far as uh, you took the approach that you took, that you were going to make your mom laugh every day, that you were going to be the best caretaker you possibly could be. You weren't going to be squeamish. You were going to do it right. But it turned your life upside down, I imagine. I mean, it had to change everything about what you had been doing previously, because now here you are, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, what I liked about it is, well, like you've mentioned, I've had a pretty adventurous life, and I have a motto that may sound corny, but it's really worked for me, and it's find the joy. So no matter what I've done, I moved to France. I didn't know the language. I just fell in love with this village, and I said, I'm going. I'm buying this place that you see behind me. It's my house. This is where I wrote the book, and I look for the joy and the positive in any of these experiences. And if you focus on that stuff, it makes it so much easier. And so with mom, yeah, caregiving is mentally, physically, and emotionally very taxing. But if you put the focus, or at least with me, I put the focus on her. How can I make her happy? If I couldn't make her laugh, I got to at least, serve her a healthy meal. And one of the first things I did is I felt mom's dignity was whittled away from the circumstances that led up to this. And so I didn't want my mom looking and dressing like an old lady. So I bought her a new wardrobe. That was one of the first things. I said, if you want to cheer anybody up at any age, a new wardrobe kind of does it.
Yeah.
And
If you ever feel like cheering me up, I would be
a new
cheering.
wardrobe.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. All right. And so that the response of, from her, just with that little gesture was lovely. And then, I felt, I grew up with three sisters, so I knew how to deal with long hair. They all had long hair. And so I learned more than just learning to put the toilet seat down. So I knew how to care for mom. And I know that she worked full time and had the six kids, but she treated herself to a weekly trip to the beauty parlor. And I knew she liked that. And she got her nails done and had a perm, or not a perm, but a shampoo and set. And when she would visit me in LA, I would take her to my friend Stan's salon in Beverly Hills, and she got the movie star treatment. And I knew she loved that. Now, I don't know when the last time she went to a beauty parlor or even felt pretty. But I created a thing called Day of Beauty where I tried to recreate that salon treatment at home. So while she was I normally gave her sponge baths in the morning and night, and didn't wash her hair, but put her hair in a nice ponytail for bonus points, a braid. But on Day of Beauty, while she was on the commode, I would soak her feet in Epsom salt. I would shampoo her hair and rinse, and then got her to the bed, and then dealt with any kind of medical issues, and then gave her a full body massage, and then a new diaper. She got a new diaper, and then she picked out what she wanted to wear that day. And then I put her in the wheelchair. Oh, before the wheelchair thing was another ritual we came up with. So you have to be very gentle, and I learned this from hospice. When picking up, you've got to pick up under the arms. You don't grab the arms because they're very fragile. So you pick under the arms, and I asked her to wrap her arms around me. for support. And so and I would always count 1, 2, 3, and then she would stand. And then I said, it's morning hug time. So I gave her a hug, and it was lovely because neither one of us wanted to let go. And that's another thing that I think we take for granted is it's very difficult to hug older people when they're bedridden. We don't get that same kind of hug. And also it may be painful at that point because they're very fragile. But this was a lovely moment for us. And then I'd get her in the wheelchair, and then I would blow dry her hair and put it in the ponytail or a braid. And then I would I would do her nails. She was a nail model in her late teens and early 20s. And those were like the crown jewels. So I took a lot of care in manicuring and painting her nails. And I finished it off with some bright red lipstick to match the nails. And I thought, this is just a nice thing. So I put her in the wheelchair, and we wheel her into kitchen for breakfast. And we pass a large dining room mirror. And so I parked her in front of that mirror, and she just beamed. And I leaned in cheek to cheek and said, "Who is that pretty girl?" And it was just amazing, the reaction on this woman. Again, I don't know the last time she looked in the mirror or even felt pretty, but whatever she saw that day, she loved. And I said, oh my gosh, this thing has power. And so every day, even in between the days of beauty, I parked her in front of that mirror and just said, "Who's that pretty girl?" And she loved it. And it was infectious because everybody that saw her saw how good she felt and how good she looked. And it was lovely. So that was a very important lesson for me, that do not take for granted these little things you can do to make someone feel a little more special.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I've learned in life is that you can't outgive, right? Like,
Yeah.
you feel like, I'm doing this for somebody, I'm helping somebody, but what you get in return is always so much more than you can give.
Yeah.
That's what I've experienced. And so I imagine going into it with an attitude of, I'm just going to do whatever I can to make her happy and to take care of her the best that I possibly can. Like it had to feel good to see your mom smile, to hear her laugh, to see her being well taken care of and feeling better. And yeah.
And there's certainly moments of doubt and that I had, and also you're exhausted, and sometimes you're angry because things aren't going as well as you want to go. And I tried to keep that out of the room as much as possible. And I'm very emotional, especially when it comes to family. So I didn't want my mom seeing me upset or anything like that. So I would do my best to keep that out of the room because I didn't want her to feel uncomfortable. There were just moments when we sat in silence, and I held her hand when she's at the kitchen table having a cup of tea. And those were just beautiful moments. And very special. The quiet moments, I think, were some of the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what's also interesting to me is that you have no idea if this is going to be a week, a month, 6 months, 3 years. I mean, you have no idea going into it, making that commitment, how long of a commitment you're actually making.
Yeah.
And it's brave, really, to walk into that situation not knowing, but just knowing that you wanted to be the one and you wanted to be there.
Yeah. And part of it may, I think I say in the book, it was kind of selfish on my part because I love doing it. And I love being the guy who I guess did it, and I was privy to some really special moments and some lovely conversations. She suffered from a little bit of dementia, so there were some conversations we had that were pretty interesting, and that was I guess the impetus for the book. I wanted to record these moments, and I wasn't sure what form it would take, but I wanted to record these things so my siblings wouldn't miss out on some of these special moments. And the conversations or those little incidents here and there, and they were so much, they were very, I would say, they defined our relationship, but also some of them were just lovely and precious.
So sweet. And so at one point in time too, you said, well, not just her looking better and feeling better, but let's make the place look a little bit better.
Yeah. Again, so the first goal was to return dignity to mom. And then the house really wasn't this welcoming, loving home that we all grew up in. And I had some skill and experience of renovating and designing and stuff. So Yeah, I renovated the entire house because she, again, was like a kid, or a baby. She slept a lot. And so during those sleeping hours, I would run out to Home Depot and get things. And also, it was stress relief in the beginning because the basement was an absolute disaster from years and years of neglect. And it became a storage unit for everybody that ever came into the house. So I ripped apart that whole thing, and that was great stress relief, tearing down 2x4s and uh, pipes that were, from the 1930s and replacing those and all that stuff was great. And then I put a man cave because I knew I needed to continue some stress relief. And I put a rowing machine in there. We had a treadmill and bought some weights and things like that. But there were some funny moments, and I kept mom abreast of this whole thing. But after breakfast, I would sit her in the living room in one of those big cushy reclining chairs, and you put on the Animal Planet, and she's fine till she drifts off to sleep. And then I would run out to Home Depot, and so I'd be coming in the house, emptying the car with 2x4s and other material going through the living room down to the basement, and she would be watching. And this happened several times in a row. And she's just watching all this stuff go by, and she goes, "What in the world is going on?" And I said, "Mom, I'm making your house beautiful again." She goes, "Well, who is paying for all that?" I said, "You are. So cheer up. You may have to go back to work." And we did this probably 7 days in a row. She said, "What is going on?" And we would just repeat it. It was very funny. But one of the times, so the basement, everything was done. And I asked her to help with the paint colors and things like that. When it got to the carpet, I wanted her input on the carpet. So I got 2 carpet samples from the carpet guys, and they were 3-inch squares. And I put those on her breakfast tray and then went in to refill her sippy cup with some juice. And I came back a couple minutes later, and she has one of those carpet squares in her mouth and a scowl on her face. And I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "This is not a cookie." I said, "I know, Mom, it's a carpet sample. Which one tastes better?" And she chose well. And that's the one we went with.
Yeah.
So she had good taste, literally.
Yeah. Yeah. But you didn't stop at the basement either. You
No,
kept.
then I did the top floor, and that's where these people were living. So I took great, I guess, satisfaction in tearing that whole place down. I put in, we had a bathroom that was separated for the boys' side and the girls' side, since we had 3 of each growing up. And so I stripped that all down. It was about 100 square feet. It was a big bathroom. So I put a nice glass shower, and I also wanted to put a big bathtub. So I put this big bathtub. And when I finished that, I carried Mom upstairs and said, "You want to christen the new bathtub with a bubble bath?" And she said, "Sure." Now, again, I don't know when the last time she had a bubble bath or any kind of bath other than a sponge bath. But I thought this would be a lovely thing. And so she was game. And so I put her in the bathtub, and I shot a picture of her. I put the bubbles, covering any parts that we didn't want seen. And she's grinning from ear to ear, and it's great. And then she passes out. And I'm thinking, oh, great. I try to do a nice thing and I kill my mom. And how am I going to explain this to my siblings? But again, I thought she was kidding because she had a wicked sense of humor. So I thought she was joking. So I tap her on the cheek and nothing. She's out cold. So I pull her out of the bathtub, I dry her off, and she's still out cold. And I'm like, oh man. So I carry her downstairs, I put her to bed, and I call up a nurse. And they said the hot bath, you left her in too long. She fainted because her blood pressure went way down. So that was almost literally her last bath. And it ended up being her last bath. So no more bubble baths for Mom. But she woke up about 30 minutes later, and she remembered the new bathroom, but she didn't remember passing out. So for me, it was a win-win.
That's right.
And at least she smelled good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm sure she enjoyed it before she passed out. So
Yeah, yes,
yeah,
she has fond memories of that one. Yeah.
yeah, that's good. That's good. I love your whole approach. I love your attitude toward it all and whatever. And so how long was this whole process for you? How long were you with your mom?
Well, the book we chronicle, it's about 3.5 years. So, and I like the half part because it was very funny. You know, with kids, you always go, "Oh, she's 1.5." Oh, but so I would get my mom dolled up and take her on outings. And so we would go in town. I would carry her to the car and then put the wheelchair in there and then wheel her up and down the main street because she was a shopaholic. So she always wanted to see what stores are coming and going. And people would stop and ask, "Oh, oh, she's so cute. How old?" I go, "Oh, 91 and a half." You know, because at that age, those halves are really important.
Yeah, they are.
So that was very fun. So yeah, she did good. Yeah, it was nice because from her deathbed to 3.5 years later, and she had I'm very happy. I think it was, if you have to pick a lovely way to leave this earth, I think she experienced that. And I think my dad did also. They both died in their beds. I was with both of them and a different sister with each, with their kids with them and in very little pain. And they both got, my dad got hot chocolate with some whipped cream on it. That was his last wish for something. And mom got coffee ice cream.
Mm.
And that was one of her favorites. And yeah, it was lovely. And that certainly helped me with saying goodbye because it was a lovely way to go and a lovely way to say goodbye for us with our mom and stuff. So that was very cool.
Yeah, yeah. What a beautiful moment. And 3.5 years means that you did a really good job. Like, this might sound bad. I don't mean it to sound bad, but when I meet somebody who has like a 15-year-old dog or a 16-year-old dog, I go, holy cow, you must be such a good dog parent because dogs don't always live that long, right?
Yeah.
So you must have been so good with your mom that she got another 3.5 years, 3.5 years that she wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. From how it began to how it ended. Yeah, and we had some lovely moments, and we had what was also nice about renovating the house is I brought the special family dinners back. So we had Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter dinner back at the house, and it was lovely. And certainly she had 3 more birthdays, and that was great to have her kids around the dining room table again and reliving those moments because yeah, it was a big family, not in the Catholic Church's eyes. We were one of the small ones, but for us, a family of 8 was a pretty big deal. And we always sat around and had the big family meals. That was all a normal thing back then. And to bring that back was very cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. That is really cool. Yeah, it's amazing. I just think it's so amazing. And I'm sure they are 3.5, some of the best years of your life when you look
Well,
back.
well, I learned a lot for a guy who had no kids and was never married. It was I really learned what unconditional love was all about because my thing from 8 years old I guess on, or if I got bored I moved on, but with this thing there was no moving on until mom wanted to move on. So I had made the full commitment not only to mom but to my siblings, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't let anybody down. And so that was my motivation. Um, but if you go in with I think the right attitude and open heart and not take things personally, because early on, out of the 6 kids, I'm the only one whose name she couldn't remember. And so I have a chapter in the book about this, but so at this point, several months in, and I'm wiping her butt several times a day, and among all the other things. And one morning, she greets me with, "And so what is it I call you?" And I said, "You're kidding, right?" She says, "No." I said, "Name your kids." She goes, "Laurel, Michael, Carol, David, DC." And stumped. I
Mm.
said, "Mark." He goes, "Oh, Mark." Mark with a K? I said, "Yeah, you named me." And I said, "I'm your favorite son." She goes, "I don't have a favorite." I said, "Well, you have a favorite to forget." So instead of getting mad, I wrote Mark in big block letters and taped it to the ceiling. So in the morning when I would come in, She'd be laying in bed and she'd say hi and then look up for the visual aid and come back and go, Mark. And she was very proud. And then we started turning it into a game because a couple times I'd go in and she didn't want to look up, but she had to because she couldn't figure out what to call me. And so it was a lot of fun. And then after a few weeks, she remembered me. But so the chapter in the book, does wiping butt cause amnesia? And I have evidence that in fact it does. So,
That's right.
but you can't take it personally.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's great advice. What other advice do you have for people? So, people that are even deciding, do I move in with my folks? Do I have them move in with me? Do I put them somewhere? Do I, whatever? What kind of advice do you have for people?
Well, I would say the main thing is if you're not comfortable doing it, don't. Stay as either a supervisor or help out. Like if hospice is there, you can help. Because if you're uncomfortable, your loved ones get to feel that, and they're going to feel guilty, and you don't want them to do that. You have to honor them, and again, if you're going to do it, jump in fully and find the joy in it somehow. Some of my siblings didn't find the joy in it. They would do what they had to do, but there was very little joy in it. And I don't understand that. But again, I think the way we were brought up, or certainly the way I grew up, was to find that, because both of my parents were very fun people, and they also set a really good example of how to treat other people. They didn't lecture us on doing the right thing. We just watched them do this stuff. And I always watched my dad open the doors for the ladies, car door, house, church, and stand up whenever a lady entered the room. When's the last time you saw that? And those kind of things. And my mom, especially she cared for us in a lovely way, but she was really treated animals in a special way. She was just amazing with that. And so we grew up and see how you can care so much, even for a mouse. And we saw examples of, we had a lot of pets in the house, all kinds, but we would see the birth of mice and cats, no dogs, but lots of cats and lots of mice. And they were lovely lessons to learn as a kid. And I remember one of our cats wasn't a good mother. She didn't know what to do. So we had to milk the cats. We had to feed them with little bottles of warm milk and stuff like that until the mother got the hang of it. And there were no tube videos for cats back then. So those again were lovely examples. And I never saw my parents say a mean thing, I think, about anybody. There was no race or color or creed or anything like that. And it was just lovely. So we had a good upbringing, I think. And so that's also helped this quite a bit. And we were Catholic, so honor thy father and mother are a big deal. And there's no better way to do that than this, and to give them a good send off. They put up with us for at least 18 years, some a lot longer. And so I think we could put up with it.
Yeah.
It was lovely. I think I got more out of it than my mom did.
Yeah. Yeah. What a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing. And finding someone to come in, I would think would be so difficult. Like if instead you said, we're just going to hire somebody to come in full time, it'd be so hard to do, to find the right person that you trust, right?
It's rare. Yeah. Because we did that at one point. Again, I wasn't going to take over right away. And so we have a funny chapter in the book, The Parade of Aides. And so we were interviewing a full-time person, and that was a nightmare because you find out. It's interesting. So this one lady was probably a lovely lady, but her emotional needs were greater than my mother's physical needs.
Oh.
And it was like she needed a hug more than my mom needed, food. And it was and I said, oh, she's just going to be fragile, too fragile for this thing. And so what was good about that is you learn how difficult it is to find somebody. And then that also gave me, I think it was the catalyst to say, I got to do this. Because in my mind, nobody's going to do it better than me. And I don't know if I proved that or not, but it was good. And I think the best choice definitely at that time. It wasn't all roses though. Mom, there was, another lesson I say, you got to set boundaries early. And so one of them, I woke up very early in the morning to a dingling bell. And I'm like, what in the world is that? And I go downstairs and I see my mom in her bed holding a little brass bell like Queen Elizabeth. And I'm like, please tell me you did not ring that to summon me. I most certainly did. So I said, and now I will take that from you so it never rings again. And she's like, why? And I said, because I am your son. I am not your servant. I am here out of love, not duty. So you don't need to ring a bell. You call and I come. That's the way it is. So that was that was the last time she rang the bell. And there were other times with, I don't know what it is with seniors, but they have an affection for Kleenex tissues that is unbelievable. They are like, again, I say with mom, not only her nails, but those Kleenex tissues were like the crown jewels. And to pry those things from her mighty grip was not easy. And she, they're at this point, some of them are just shreds. They've long lived past the design of what a tissue should be doing. And whenever I would enter the room, she would hide it, either up her sleeve or in a pocket somewhere. And I would have to get it because, they could be disease carrying at this point. And also the utilitarian part of it is not, there anymore. So I would have to use a little charm and persuasion to get her to let go of this thing. It was like a baby with giving up the baby blanket. And I'd have to do that quite often, but I, dangle a fresh new one, and the fresh new one came with a lovely cup of hot tea. And so that was the way I got it away first time, and the second time was a little easier and stuff like that. But it's amazing. And I find myself as I'm getting older going, that tissue's not done yet. I think we could use it more. So it's creeping up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the whole tucking in the sleeve thing. Like you don't do that as a young person. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do it, but I've seen plenty of older people do it. Tuck it
Yeah.
in their sleeve and their whatever, any place that they can put it, I guess. I don't know. In their bra,
Yeah.
whatever.
Again, they're special, whatever. And I have a pact with my older sister. I said, if either one of us catches the other doing that, we can be put to death with the other one's blessing. And so far we're okay. But I'm afraid to visit her, and I think she's probably afraid to visit me.
Yeah. Well, and if you just wear short sleeves like you are today, then you
Yeah,
don't have to worry so much about it, as much about
that
it.
helps. Yes. But I
Yeah.
live alone here, so I can have them anyway. We're not going to go into that.
Yeah. Yeah. So wow. I love it. Your book is funny, but it's also very informational. Like there are so many things to learn from it. If find yourself in a situation where you're wondering if you're going to move in or what's going to happen with your mom or dad, it's so helpful for that. If you're in the thick of it, it's so helpful for that. I mean, I just see your book as helping a whole lot of people out there because we're an aging society.
Yeah.
People are facing this every day. And
Yeah, I think my goal is to hopefully inspire other people to take it on because it wasn't that long ago where 3 generations were normal in the home. And we don't respect the older people like we used to. And they have so much to teach us. I mean, the life experience they have is amazing. I only had one grandparent and she was great. Those were lovely times with my grandma. It's a shame. So if I don't call it a how-to book, it's what I did book. And if you get some benefit out of it, which I think you will, great. And if nothing else, you'll certainly get a lot of laughs. People say they cry out loud and they laugh out loud. So that's the main thing because humor plays a big role in it. In parenting, I found out it's humor and red wine, 2 main things for parenting.
to get through it. Yeah. Yeah. I think it changes to whiskey though when they become teenagers.
Probably. I didn't deal with that. I dealt with an infant
Right.
and a pesky, I'd say stubborn, guilt tripping one. But yeah, so I've dealt that with my nieces and especially, yeah, whiskey definitely.
Yeah. 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 So it is. It's so good. I just hope people buy it. Lots of people buy it. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it. Where all is your book available?
Well, Amazon has all four versions. So it's paperback, large print paperback, ebook, and audio. Barnes and Noble, I think, has them all now. Kobo has the ebook. And there's a lot of brick and mortar stores around the states that have it. And then our distributor that works with our publisher has them all over the world in languages I don't know. We're not we're translated so far just in one language, and it's going to China, which is very cool. They've got a few readers over there, and it resonated with this agent over in China, and he had it sold within 2 weeks to a publisher. So
Wow.
that'll come out hopefully within a year or two in Chinese, and I won't be able to proof it. So I have no idea how they've translated it, but I'm hoping it will do well over there. And so we're shopping it out to other countries for foreign rights and stuff like that. So it's been pretty exciting. It's won a bunch of awards, and but the personal notes I've received from people have just been amazing and humbling, and people, it's really resonated with a lot of people. But to hear their personal and their raw messages to me, it's just amazing. So I had no idea that you put your heart and soul into something, you don't know if it's going to resonate. You put it out in the world and you hope that people like it and it clicks with certain people. But boy, this thing's been lovely. And so that means more than, let's say, the awards and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm hoping it will get out to more people and inspire more people and touch them and things like that. So that's very cool.
Right, right. And I would encourage people to don't just buy one for yourself. You probably know somebody who could use the book or would love to read the book. And so buy multitudes, buy several, send them to friends.
I love you.
Get a case of them. Put them in your trunk. Hand them out to strangers. Whatever. It's a great book. And
the audio book is fun too, because I put I recorded it here. I set up a studio here, and I added some production value to it, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
There's some fun moments. Yeah.
Yeah. So get it. Everybody should get it. Everybody should buy it. Yeah, I love it. And then you moved to France. And so I am curious about the whole Chinese version, because you were talking about commode, meaning in English and the meaning in French being two different things. And
Right.
so, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Chinese words have to change or.
Yeah, I have no idea. The agent, I met with him at the London Book Fair, and he just talked about why it touched him, because I think he went through something similar with his grandparent. And so it clicked right away with him. And so, and I guess with the publisher that he found. So I have, again, no idea. And I don't think I have any control over what they name it or whatever. I just hope they do a good job with it. And I said, if you need me to come over and do readings and stuff, I will do that in English, preferably. And yeah, so, but it's exciting. To get, it's fun. So it keeps growing and growing. And these podcasts and interviews are lovely because it gets to keep my mom in the present. And so that's your gift to me, which I really enjoy. And I think Mom's smiling too. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah. You bring that up, and I'm glad that you just brought that up because it triggered something in me. I'm writing a book on grief right now, which, grief is kind of a heavy subject, but I just think, we should allow people to grieve however it is that they want to grieve, and we judge people's grief and whatever. But one of the things is that you wonder what to say to somebody, like, what do you say at the funeral? What do you say whenever? And one thing that I think is so incredible and people don't do is ask about the person. Let a story be told. What was your husband like?
Right,
tell us a
right.
story, whatever, because we want to talk about the people that we've lost, right? We want to talk about the people that have moved on. And so feel free to tell a story, ask someone to tell a story. And so I've loved being on the receiving end of your stories today, because they're precious. And the way you talk about your mom is just wonderful. And every son should talk about their mama that way. This is coming from the mother of 4 sons. Every son should talk about their mama that way.
That's right.
Yes.
And if they don't, give me their emails or their phone number. I'll give them a call.
Okay, thank you very
Yeah.
much. Thanks for taking care
Yeah.
of that for me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So what is next on the horizon for you?
Well, before I turned the book into the publisher, the last draft, I cut out 4,000 words that I thought would be better suited for a book about my dad. And I touch, my dad's in this book quite a bit, but I touch on his snack food company and also this trip I took him in 1995 to the little village in Italy where his father came from. And so with my dad, again, I got one of these calls from my brother, and I'm out in LA, and he says, the doctor says he's got 30 days. And so you fly in, and he only had 8 days. But I spent a good most of those 8 days with him. And we had, again, some lovely moments and lovely conversations. And the book will be about those 8 days, but then also I'll expand on his snack food company and then also this trip to Italy, because originally there were going to be like 3 different books. And I said, you know what? The end of this trip to Italy, again, this was 1995. This is before the snack food was out in the marketplace, but I had samples. And I brought them to this little village, and I don't remember exactly why, but I think I wanted to share them with, we didn't know if we were going to meet family there or not. Nobody had been there in 100 years. So nobody returned that came over to the States. So we were the first Poros. And so the last day before we left, we only spent a couple days. The village was only 200 people at the time. Now it's less than 100. And my great-grandfather was the mayor of this village back in around 1880s. And as we are taking our final tour around the village, we see a burlap sheet on the side of the road with popcorn kernels drying in the sun. And we had one gentleman, Paolo, who spoke some English. So I asked him about that. And he says, oh, the popcorn, we make it the popcorn. And I said, perfect timing. So I pull out the sample of NeutriNuts. Now, NeutriNuts do not look like popcorn. They are golden nuggets. And we call it half popped popcorn. And so I tell Paolo about it and I show him and he looks at it and he goes, that's not the good popcorn. I said, I know it's supposed to look like this. He wanted these big fluffy white things. And he goes, and so I said, try it. You're going to have to try it. So he puts one in his mouth and he's like, it's not a good popcorn. So I told Dad, I said, if this, when we export it to Italy, we're going to have to rename it. Not a good popcorn. Anyway, so those 3 stories all came together at that moment in this little mountaintop village. So I said, I can put this all in one book because now it makes sense. And
Yeah.
so that book is about halfway through. And so I think the voice will be somewhat similar. I'll try to pick up on some of my dad's, and there's a lot of humor in it, of course. And so that's what's on the horizon.
Yeah, fun project. And you're writing it in the south of France, which
I'm suffering here. It's terrible. It's this place that I bought is almost 500 years old, and this is the room I wrote it in. And it's a very cool, very artsy village. Has a lot of political, architectural, and theatrical history, and there's artisans all over the place. There's cobblestone streets. I live in the historic center, so it's all 16th, 17th century. It's just very cool.
no kidding.
So,
Sounds so
yeah.
cool. Yeah,
So,
yeah, that would be a great atmosphere. I'm a writer, and there are certain places I want to write someday. Like
Yeah.
I'd love to be on a cliff in Maine overlooking the ocean. Like that would be
Yeah.
a cool place to write, or in Colorado up in the mountains. I mean, there's some places that just are more inspirational somehow in my head. And so where you are, what a beautiful place to write. That's awesome. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm very lucky. Yeah. We have, I guess, my mom's parents both died before she was married, so we don't know that much about that side of the family, other than her mother, her grandmother married a Frenchman. So we have French on our side. And I think they spoke to me or somehow, because there's no way I should be here. There's absolutely no reason why I should be here. But the first time I came to this village, I fell in love with it and never looked back. And it's lovely. And my mother's name is Genevieve, so there's the French touch there. And I always called her Geneviève, and I don't know why. Just I thought it sounded better.
Yeah.
And so there's the French, I think throughout my life, even though I've been to Italy and very comfortable there, and we know more of our Italian relatives and stuff, but French is, well, it's also very close, so it's not hard to get to, but
Right,
yeah,
right.
it's very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. This was so fun. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the information that you gave and the stories that you told. And buy the book, everybody, buy the book. And I'm so happy for you that it's doing so well. And I know it will continue to do well and help a lot of people. Can't wait for the second one. That's going to be awesome. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you being here.
My pleasure, Kim. Again, this is your gift to me, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, my pleasure in that. So thank you also, all of you, for joining us today. And I hope that you had as much fun as I had. I'm sure that you did, because Mark's a pretty cool guy, and this was awesome. And I just pray until we see each other again, that you keep your heart open and you live your love loud.